How to recognize and recover from burnout. As someone who just recently, this last month, struggled with some serious burnout that caused me a massive increase in anxiety, lowered my memory and cognition. It was really just something hard that I went through. And so with that being said, I've created this 4-step guide that I think if I would have had at the beginning of my burnout, it would have made it a lot easier for me. So just speaking from my experience, hopefully I can help any of you guys out there who are facing burnout or on the verge of burnout, have faced burnout in the past. So with that being said, the first piece in this 4-step guide is to understand what burnout looks like. For me, I thought I just needed to push more. I just needed to keep working. I just be like, okay, you know what? I'm facing, I'm feeling this lower cognition. I'm feeling this increased anxiety. Time to just dig in deeper. But when I started doing that, it actually got me into more trouble and made my symptoms even worse. So what those symptoms can look like is fatigue, headaches, trouble sleeping. Those are some big physical symptoms. My dad has had burnout twice in his life. One time did send him to the hospital and almost killed him. With that being said, he had such a problem sleeping. He was only sleeping 2 to 4 hours a night. So if you see some of those physical symptoms in yourself, maybe just time to do an audit to how you are feeling. The emotional pieces are detached, hopeless, overwhelmed. And those are some of the heavy ones that I faced. I felt detached, I felt hopeless. I'm like, oh my gosh, am I ever gonna get results? Is this ever gonna end? I feel like shit. So those are some of the big emotional pieces that I felt. And then finally, you can look at the behavioral things you might face, which are procrastination, reduced performance, which is huge for me. As I said, I just felt racked. My head felt like it was just operating just a level lower, and it was really frustrating to deal with, and I couldn't figure out why until I took a step back and looked at, okay, is this something else? Is it something that I don't need to push harder? I need to change my ways. I'm gonna get in that later. And then also a little bit with withdrawal is what I felt. I didn't want to sit back down at this desk. I didn't want to work anymore. I was like, I don't want to focus on this stuff. Like I'm frustrated with it and it's really stressing me out. So the first piece is to understand the burnout. What symptoms might you be facing, and is it burnout? It's not always burnout, but there's a chance if you're facing multiple of these symptoms and you've been going on for a long period of time, then it might be. Because that leads us to the second piece of identifying the root causes of burnout itself. The first piece is going to be work-related stress, and this is probably going to be the biggest one. Is you have an unmanageable workload maybe, whether that's assigned to yourself within your own business, or maybe your boss assigns it to you and you just can't keep up. So that could be a big piece of burnout, as well as lack of control. Whether there's factors outside of your control and you just can't seem to get your hands around the problem and it's just so elusive, or there's just so much workload, like I said, like with the boss just continuing to assign you stuff. Or maybe it's a lack of results or focus. That was another big one for me, is that I wasn't getting the results and I wasn't focused on the right things. I was working on things that didn't matter. Right now, I'm so focused on email marketing and content, and I was looking at paid ads and stuff like that. That stuff just does not apply to me right now. And so I didn't have focus, which then lowered my results because I wasn't working on the things that mattered, which would then get me results within my business. So that's one root cause that you could have, is work-related stress. The second one is personal factors. And when I say personal factors, I mean perfectionism. That was a big one for me. So with my results, I may have been getting more results than I thought, but I was only focused on what I was doing wrong. I never focused on what I was doing right, which then lowered my perceived amount of results, which made it then very frustrating for me. So perfectionism is a big one. Overcommitment is another one. Whether you overcommit with yourself, which is what I was doing is that I would always be on that treadmill, as I call it. I was always on. So whether I was getting ready in the morning or making a peanut butter bagel, whatever, I was always watching an educational video and always trying to be on. Or I was trying to sit at this desk when I wasn't doing that, always trying to work. And I never got off that treadmill. And so that really contributed to being more frustrating. I have a fix for that later if you feel like you have that overcommitment. And then also lack of self-care is something. If you're not sleeping, if you're not exercising, those things can be really detrimental to you and can cause burnout. And one final piece is environmental. This can contribute to burnout. If you have a really negative work culture, whether it's with yourself, so if you're perfectionism like I did, that can be negative work culture right here. Or if you work at a company that is a negative work culture, it can really start to take a toll on you. So if you have that poor work culture or you have that lack of support, that can be really difficult as well. So once you've understood what symptoms you have and you've understood the root causes, it's time to start rebuilding your mental and emotional resilience. Once you've identified these things, I think that's one of the biggest pieces, is stabilize, be like, you know what, maybe I have burnt out. It's time to do a little audit and see how I can fix this. And when you're going through this, I would really encourage you to not marry one idea that's gonna fix the problem. Some of the best advice I heard when I was going through this burnout is to just try little small experiments with yourself. Because if you marry yourself to one idea that, okay, if I take a week off, it's gonna work, and then I won't be burnt out anymore, and I'll come back fresh. If you take that week off, you come back and you're not fresh and you still feel burnt out, you will be very frustrated and probably be in a rush if you have that perfectionism or overcommitment like I did. So what I encourage you to do is just set up small experiments. I'm gonna take one day off, see how it makes me feel. I'm gonna try this modality, see how it makes me feel. We're gonna get into some of those fixes that you can just set up small experiments for. The first one is journaling, and this is probably would have been one of my favorites throughout my journey of recovering from burnout. So in my journaling, I do it every day at the end of the day, and I do three questions. What did I do right? What do I need to do better? And what would my 80-year-old self tell me? So what I did right accomplishes building and getting over my perfectionism. What I need to improve on helps me focus and get results, as well as continually improve, because I built that way. I just want to continue to personally grow, and that question helps me do that. And the third and the final piece is probably my favorite, which is what advice would my 80-year-old self gives me? Because my 80-year-old self knows what I want, knows my situation completely, and also wants the best for me. So those three things in advice is gonna give you the best possible advice. And if you can just take yourself out of your frame that you're currently in, you can actually get some pretty good advice by just thinking, what would my 80-year-old self tell me to do in this situation? Because then we don't think about the emotions we have right now. We don't think about the problems we face today. We think on a much longer time horizon when we have someone else giving us advice, or our 80-year-old self. And so when I take that frame, I find it really helpful. So that's the first thing I do, is I started journaling. The second thing I started doing is I really leaned onto my mentor or my coach, and then also my therapist. So those benefits are kind of self-explanatory, but I found those very helpful as well. And then also the third thing I did was some really heavy self-care. And what I mean is I really made sure I was hitting my sleep, made sure I was hitting my exercise, I made sure I was hitting my relaxation. And the way I made sure I was hitting my relaxation was my yes or my no time. So what I mean by this yes or no time, what does that mean, Chris? It means that I am working, no, I am not. So that means my phone's put away, I'm no distractions, I'm bought in and I'm committed, I'm more focused than I was in the past. Or, no, I'm not working and I'm absolutely doing nothing. I'm not checking email, I'm sitting on that couch out there with my fiance, whether we're watching a movie, whether we're talking, whatever, I am not working and I'm focused on not working. Or yes, I'm focused on working. That's been a really helpful frame for me to have. That yes or no time helped me get off that treadmill and help not rack my mind. The fourth and the final piece is developing healthy habits to support your recovery and never have this happen again. The healthy habits that I have are my quiet time. Quiet time is really helpful. It's one of my favorite things to do when I'm driving. So it's simply just have everything off. It allows your mind to run and kind of think and compartmentalize some of the things that you're facing. So when I'm driving, I like to do that, as well as when I'm just sitting outside over here, I like to have some quiet time, just think through my day. It's really helpful for me. So quiet time could be something that you can implement, as well as just a habit of understanding what needs to change. When you look at your root causes, what needs to change? Is it your perfectionism? Is it your work environment? Is it your unmanageable workload? What needs to happen? And sometimes, unfortunately, things can't change and you just have to endure. For me, for example, I can't just snap and generate myself clients. I will have to continue to endure, continue to work on my email marketing, continue to work on my content to develop those things, sometimes with a lack of results. But the thing is that I've done it in a more healthy way now, at least I think so. And so for me, I've fixed some of those things I needed to fix so that I could do that in a way that is changed and allows me to go for a lot longer time period. I felt like I worked for about 1.5 years straight. I didn't take a day off at all. And it wasn't until that 1.5 years when I burnt out and I just pulled my head above water and be like, okay, I gotta take a breath of fresh air, revisit why I'm doing this shit. And that can be really helpful for you as well, is understanding why are you doing the things you are doing. For me, it's because I ended up in the hospital when I was 17 for some pretty serious suicidal ideation. And in there, I realized I was dealt 2 aces in life. I was dealt 2 aces, and I saw so many people in there that were so much less fortunate to me, it angered me. So angry about it, not at them at all, but at the world. And I was mad at the world in terms of there was like an 11-year-old girl in there, and it gave me a visceral reaction in there. I was so upset. I was like, why is there an 11-year-old girl in there considering suicide. I was so upset. And so what happened for me is that turned out to be one of the best things that happened to me in my life. Because now my mission is to help young people or people alike go from victim to victor mindset so they can live a life on their terms. And so understanding what your purpose is can help you get over some of this stuff. And it's helped me. It's helped me refine what I want to focus on, what do I want to do, and it helps me get through the hard times. Because when I have those hard times, now I go back to that 11-year-old girl and say, this is for her. This is for her. And funny enough, it's about 6 years ago that I was in the hospital, and that girl's 17 now. And my target market right now is 16 to 18-year-olds. I make this content for kind of everybody, but my target market is 16 to 18-year-olds. So it's kind of coincidental for me that I had that thing come up, and now I have her to kind of lean on that I think about. So it's something that's been really helpful for me is revisit your purpose. And this is how to recognize and recover from burnout. Hopefully this was a helpful video. If you like it, I'll make more of them.